I haven't heard many people talk about these books. Greetings, my name is Nina, welcome back to my channel. And in this video I'm gonna show you the books in my collection that I don't think anybody online really talked about. I found most of these books either in stores or at the marketplaces. I simply went there, found them, ordered them, and a lot of them I haven't read yet. I have yet to read them. I did read some though. So in this video you're not going to see some popular classics or popular fantasy or whatever. In this video I'm gonna go through books that not only I haven't heard anybody talk about, but also I haven't talked about them much unless I showed you the bookshelf tour. So let's get started. So let's go through these books. Maybe in this video there are books that you have read or would like to read, or maybe you haven't heard about them but now you'd want to read them. So in this video I'm not going to talk about books that are also my favorite, mostly the ones that I haven't read but I have in my collection. So let's do this. So I received this book as a birthday gift. My friend brought this book to me from the UK and she told me that she saw a girl with a guitar on the cover and she thought of me, and this is why she selected it. So this is Run Rose Run by Dolly Parton and James Patterson. So I started reading this book and I stopped at the page 90. I didn't go too far with it. And yeah, this book is about a girl who wants to be a country singer and to escape her past. The chapters in this book are very short, and this is what I really like. Yeah, it's music themed, as I like. Okay, I did mention this book before on my channel. I read this. It's not a book actually, it's a collection of essays. However, I still haven't heard anybody talk about them, so let me show this collection of essays. This is The Power of Words by Simone Weil, a French philosopher. So this edition, Penguin Reader's Great Ideas. This one contains 3 essays: The Power of Words, Human Personality, and the Needs of the Soul. So this collection I actually want to read again in the future. I do remember the first essay impressing me a lot. Next author is from Norway, and I have never heard of these comic books until I entered the store and I found these comics there. So these are the Northern Lights comic books by Malin Falk. As I remember, there are 6 comic books, but they only translated the first 3 into Georgian. What happened next, I don't know. So I read the first 2 comic books, these 2, but for some reason I did not read the third one yet. This isn't the only Norwegian author in this video. There are going to be more of those. Okay, I guess a lot of people have heard of Philip K. Dick. Well, mostly for the Blade Runner and probably The Man in High Castle. However, I haven't heard anybody talk about these 3 books. So, Free Radio Albemuth or Radio Free Albemuth. So, let me check it out. So, Radio Free Albemuth, The Simulacra, and The Clans of Alphane Moon. It's hard for me to pronounce these titles. So I read this one, so I was drawn to the book because it had the concept of government control, government absorbing everybody, and so on. This is what got me. I read this. This is one of the first books that I read this year. So this is basically about a planet which is an asylum that was once controlled, but then the inhabitants of the asylum planet, they took over and became independent, something like that. And this is, I think it's about conspiracy theories. I read this one in 2023. I took this book on vacation with me, and this is about Arthurian legends. King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table by Roger Lancelin Green. I haven't heard anybody talk about this book. It isn't only about King Arthur, but it's also about his knights too. Each chapter is dedicated to each knight, and spoiler alert, it's all sad at the end. So this comic book I never heard about until I entered a bookstore. So this is the Babysitters Club, the first volume. So this is how it's called. Sorry, I keep forgetting. Christie's Great Idea, the Babysitters Club. This comic book is less than 200 pages, and I really like the drawings. They look nice. Unfortunately, so far they only translated the first volume. They haven't translated the others. So this has to be my go-to comic book this year, I guess. The next book I got on the book crossing in 2023, No Logo by Naomi Klein, and I started reading this one recently. So nowadays I have a new approach to reading books. So I pick up a random book and I read the 100 pages, and if I like the book I continue, if I don't I stop reading it, and this saves me a lot of time. And I go through books and realize whether I like them or not. So I only read 26 pages of this one and I do kind of like it. Okay, this isn't the only Naomi Klein book in my collection. I also have This Changes Everything, and I also had No Is Not Enough, however I donated it. Eventually I decided I wouldn't read it again. But this one I found in a bookstore. Cassandra in Reverse by Holly Smale. I actually bought this book because I thought if I need a light read, an easy read, sorry. If I need an easy read, I would read this one, and I still haven't read it yet. It's about a girl who finds out that she has the power to go back in time and change things. I originally thought that this premise sounds a bit similar to Before the Coffee Gets Cold. And this book I wish I discovered sooner when I was still at university, because I had the philosophy in university, and this book is, I think everybody who is into philosophy is aware of this book right now. So, Sophie's World by Usain Gordon. So I started reading this book in summer. However, in 2025 I suddenly felt that I couldn't read in English anymore. I just had no energy for it, and for some reason it felt difficult and more difficult. So I ordered the Russian version, but I'm keeping this one because the cover is pretty nice. I do have a general rule that if the original language of the book isn't English, I'd rather read the Russian version over the English one. I am heavily biased against books that were translated into English from other languages. If I am reading in English, I'd rather read books that were originally written in the language. But the premise of the book is very interesting. This is about a girl named Sophie who gets the letters from this unknown individual, which tells her about the philosophy of the world. So this book is a mystery novel, but also non-fiction. So this book is both fiction and non-fiction, because the non-fiction part is about philosophy. Aristotle, Nietzsche, you name it. Yeah, of course the premise was super interesting, so that's why I went for it. And I have yet to read it. Okay, so I mentioned this author before on my channel, and I have two of his books. So the author is Walter Moyer. So this one is 13 and a Half Lives of Captain Blue Bear, which I read in 2020. And I forgot how it's called in English. In German, it's Schrecksenmeister. Der Schrecksenmeister. Our German Terry Pratchett. This is the blurb on the back of this book. So this book is set in Samonia, and I think this is also a Samonia book. So just like Terry Pratchett has his Discworld world, these books are set in Samonia. This is about the life of a blue bear, his childhood, and him growing up with various individuals and groups. And this is about an unlikely deal and the main character trying to escape it. Oh, on the cover it says The Chronicles of Tsamonia. More fantasy over here. I've never heard about this book until I entered a marketplace website, and this is where I found it. So this is the first book in the Xanth series by Pierce Anthony. And the first book is called A Spell for Chameleon. I really think that the cover of this book is very nice. So this is about this magical country where everybody has a special talent except being the main character. And he is desperately trying to find his talent. Here comes another fantasy book that I do not think that a lot of people heard about. And I found this in a horrible condition, but it was cheap, and I was like, yeah, let's give it a try. The Rune Lords by David Farland. This is the first book. So I've never heard about the Rune Lords before, and I read the 80 pages, and the fantasy feels a bit simplistic. Yeah, you can feel the premise. Yeah, there's this kingdom. Yeah, there are these characters, and there's going to be conflict soon. There's going to be war soon, like your standard fantasy. However, yeah, it feels a bit simplistic. I was reading this and I thought, I'd rather read The Lord of the Rings again. Now I'm gonna try to continue this book. Facts about me: I really like band biographies, and as someone who is into band biographies, I haven't heard anybody talk about the books by David Hepworth. So the first book I read by him are Uncommon People, The Rise and Fall of the Rock Stars. Each chapter of this book is about a certain rock star. These books I haven't read yet, so this is about the music that came out in the year 1971. This is 1971, Never a Dull Moment, and Overpaid, Oversexed, and Over There. How a few skinny Brits with bad teeth rocked America. Well, that's a pretty interesting title. This is about the Beatles. I do have a biography of the Beatles by Hunter Davies, the only ever authorized biography, and I started reading that. So the next one is a thriller. I've never heard about this book until I found it in a store. I read 46 pages, and it has a Netflix logo attached to it because this book was made into a Netflix film. And the book is Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll, about a girl who has everything. She is all successful, and she also has a dark past. Something happened at her old school. So yeah, I read nearly 50 pages and I thought the book was pretty good, and the blurb also said that it's for fans of Gone Girl. The last Norwegian author in this video. This book was also translated by Norla, but not to Georgian, but into Russian. So, facts about me: if you are new to this channel, I love music very much, and I love books with music themes. And when I found out that there is non-fiction about music, I knew I had to go for it. So, Music and the Brain by Are Breen and Geir Ulveskaye. I can't pronounce this, so I can't pronounce these names, sorry. I think it hasn't been translated into English, or maybe it was, I do not know. So basically this is non-fiction which analyzes how music affects our brain. Not only the musicians themselves, but also the listeners, how music affects us all, how it works on our brains. And it also says over here how music affects emotions, health, and intelligence. So we only have a few books left over here. So a survival novel, A New Wilderness by Diana Cook. Haven't heard anybody talk about it. Simply found in a bookstore for a relatively cheap price, so I got it. Gone by Michael Grant, teen dystopia with a pretty big font. So this is the first book in the series. Yet another dystopia. This time this is from Korea, translated into English from Korean. Snow Globe by Sayang Park. So I'm filming this video on April 1st, 2026. So this book I got literally yesterday. This is a book by an Irish author, Caronia O'Brien, and it's her debut novel called Solo. I was randomly walking near a bookstore. If you are Georgian, you know this store. This is a Sulakauri bookstore, and I saw a lot of people there. As it turned out, there were a lot of discounts on books, so everybody rushed there to buy as many books as possible. I entered, did not expect anything, and I found this. So yeah, this book is music themed. It's related to music, and it's basically like a poem, and the author uses the music terms like alto and choir, sotto, cantata, and lacrissimo, and so on. All of these Italian words regarding music. Presto, allegro, moderato, lento. For some reason there were no discounts on this book, but I got it anyway. Okay, so I do realize that I've grown a lot because I wouldn't have shown you books like the last two before, because I was biased. I thought that if I show certain books that people might think, oh, she has this book, she must be thinking this or supporting that or something like that. Not anymore. So a little book of politics. So yeah, the book that explains political theories. And this is the book that I would have loved to have when I was still at university. It would have helped me a lot. So yeah, this book doesn't simply explain politics, but also economy and philosophy. And those of you who study international relations, well, that's my studies. You also know that it's not just politics, but also economy and philosophy, and also a lot of social and cultural stuff. And finally, the last book in this video, A Story of One German by Sebastian Haffner. In English it has a different title, and I think that it shouldn't have been changed. It should have remained A Story of One German. Geschichte eines Deutschen. I was about to order another book, but the algorithm decided I needed this one, so I went for it. I think from the title of this book you probably understood what this is about. I have already read this book and I got a lot of insight. The main reason I went for this book was because it was a memoir of one individual in a time and place when everything goes dark. How the mentality of people is affected. Yeah, I got a lot of insight from this book, and I'm gonna read it again. I do need to warn you that a lot of parts of this book are fictionalized. Unfortunately, they had to be for obvious reasons. I do have a lot of thoughts about this book and I need to write them down. I won't voice them in the video. Maybe one day I will, but not now. But out of all the books in this video, I'm gonna recommend this one most of all. This one, A Story of One German, is a book that definitely a lot of people should have, because it's very insightful and very well written, and you think when you read this book, you realize a lot. Not just about the time period, but also about the patterns which led a certain mentality, and then, well, you got it. Alright, that's all. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.